Jerry and I are going to tag team this. He's been taking the lead on these two things. I'll just introduce a couple of points. I gave everybody in their packet a 2-page sheet for the ACA stuff that Jerry will talk about what he has discovered for us. But it's a list of manuals and supplements that we can get from ACA. So if we decide we want to buy something from them, that's the list, and you can let me know if you would like one of those manuals or whatever. The performance-based standards for adult location facilities is $70. So I didn't put that in your packet, but just if we decide to get that one, Jerry's going to go into this some more, but I just wanted to give that little bit of primer. Also, I asked TDOC for a copy of their ACA manual, and the response I got was that they aren't supposed to give it out because you have to pay for it and all this, so it doesn't look like they're going to give us a copy. Okay, but I think Jerry's got some thoughts on ACA or CGIS. I'll let him decide which he wants to kick it off with.
Yeah, I spoke with Marilyn Braxton in Washington. She's over the membership for ACA. I asked her if we would be better off as a government organization or individual. As an organization, the price was around $350 a year, and only one person would get a discount to go to any type of training. She suggested if we wanted to become members, that we would be better off, and Dr. Karpos is already a member, but it's $35 a year to be a member of ACA. And if you become a member at $35, then you get a discount for any of the training, which this year they're doing a training here in Nashville. But if you look down the 2 pages of the different clinics that they're offering, out of 2 pages, the majority of them are either medical related or institutional food related. There was one that was barely close to having anything to do with disciplinaries. The cost of going to the conference is $325 a piece. So just we can buy the manuals and not be ACA members. The benefit of being a member is you get a monthly subscription to their magazine, and you get discounts on any of their items. I think 20%, if I'm thinking right on the top of my head. So, but what I saw, I didn't see anything that would be beneficial to us as a board if we attended a conference. Yeah, it was a 2-page list.
Yeah, I just don't think I could find it quickly enough. But Jerry and I talked about it. I agree with him that there wasn't anything on there that would probably be particularly pertinent to us. I mean, we could always find stuff, but nothing that jumped out as particularly relevant or helpful for what we do. I mean, it's helpful in general to, I'm sure, a lot of people, but just nothing jumped out for our purposes for the conference coming up in Nashville. So,
is there nothing related to sentence management? Nothing
that I could find out of the 2 pages that they listed. Most of it was medical and food services.
So I think basically what it comes down to is if we want to be members of ACA, if we do want to be members of ACA, do we want to do it on a group basis or do we want to do it on an individual basis? If we don't want to be members of ACA, but we still want to get the manuals, which is why I printed out this sheet, we can do that. And so we've got a couple of different options. Probably my recommendation would be to not be members of ACA, but order manuals that anyone on the board thinks would be helpful to this type of work and spend our money that way. And then if in the future, there are some conferences or some trainings that somebody recognizes as being necessary for the board, then we become members of ACA and get the discount that at that time, but just not do it until we really see something that we think would be helpful for us.
I agree with that. I think, and if there's only maybe one thing that we might kind of want to possibly go to, that's not worth all of us doing it. And if we can just get the manuals, let's just get the manuals, and then maybe the conference schedule for 2025 might have something, but for this year, it's not cost effective. So I'm with you, Mr. Stahl.
A lot of the conference information is for vendors showing off different equipment for the prisons, software, for corrections management. And I couldn't find anything really going with Senate Center disciplinary.
Well, and I haven't looked at what all is going to be offered at this conference. I go to them. I've been a longtime ACA member. It's only $35. I'm not encouraging or discouraging anybody from joining. What I will tell you are a couple of benefits related to it is just the ability to network with correctional professionals who work in this business day in, day out. And whether there's a roundtable discussion or a formal presentation, there are lots of informal networking opportunities where you can learn a lot about what's going on in other states and how they're handling certain things. And, you know, those would be the types of conversations I'd be looking to have this August, is talking to other people about, you know, how do y'all handle disciplinaries and how are sentence credits handled in your state? And, you know, rather than me travel around to all these different places, you know, you've got 50 different correctional agencies represented in one location. So I just see it as a real good opportunity to network with those folks. The second thing I'd offer is they have a lot of committees and subcommittees. And so it's an opportunity if you're interested in corrections in general and want to participate in a national organization that identifies and disseminates best practices across this business. It's an opportunity to volunteer and work in those committees. And there are a lot of benefits to having that opportunity. That's just been my personal experience, but I'm certainly not advocating that the board itself needs to join. But if there are individuals who think ACA might be something good for them to join at $35 a year, I would say I have felt that it was good to join.
Is it $35 a year, Mary? Well, I mean, if the board wanted to reimburse Mary for her, her membership, and then she could be the liaison to the ACA for us and let us know if she thinks things were pertinent to this or whatever, that's certainly an option as well. But I'll leave that up to the board.
I think that's a great idea. Do you want to make a motion?
I make a motion if Mary's willing to be our liaison to the agency, and we can reimburse her, have the board reimburse.
I'll second it.
Yep.
Debate and discuss. If there's no debate and discuss, motion on the floor is Dr. Carpos being the ACA liaison for our board, and therefore we will reimburse her for her yearly $35. And I suppose conference costs too.
Well, I'll let her decide if she, you know, she can come back to the board, I think, and tell the board that, you know, she thinks that it would be beneficial to go to the conference. She'd like to go, you know, whatever,
Okay.
then we can discuss. Is that okay?
Right.
Oh, sorry.
I wouldn't stay at the hotel or anything. I live locally, so it would be just whatever the non-hotel registration is to be able to attend.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
if you why don't you take a look at the training that they're offering, the presenters, and then let us know if you think that you'd like to attend. And then, I mean, it's not expensive. Like I think it could be beneficial to us, and then you can go and bring back whatever feedback you get or, helpful. But like I said, Jerry and I took a quick look. It didn't look like there was a lot there, but you might see something, or you might know someone who's going to be there and you'd like to talk to them particularly or whatever.
I would want to go to the subcommittees, particularly the best practices, penal institution subcommittee, those kind of subcommittee hearings. Well, they're not called hearings, but meetings. They're open to general attendees to listen, because then we're kind of taking the pulse of what's going on in 50 states.
So it would just be that one conference that we would be reimbursed, the Nashville conference.
I think so.
Okay.
Unless there's-
So, okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if there were multiples that, right? That
I think.
if it's just the one, yeah. Okay, so yeah, motion on the floor is Dr. Mary Karpos is our liaison for the ACA, with the board reimbursing her for her yearly membership and cost for the Nashville conference. Any second? All those in favor? All those opposed? Ayes have it. Congratulations, Dr. Mary Karpos. You are now the ACA liaison. We will put that in your bio.
Chairwoman, just before we move off the ACA issue, do we want to talk at all about ordering manuals now? My thought was that we could order at least the performance-based expected practices for adult correctional institutions, the 5th edition. And then if anyone has other manuals they'd like me to order, they can let me know after they've taken a look at the list.
I think that's fair. That way, because this is the first I'm seeing this list, so let's all take a look at the list. We'll do a group email. So, and we'll see how many and what it's going to cost us, and we'll go from there. But I don't see any problem with ordering most of these. So maybe not the juvenile, maybe not. All right. Anything else on that?
I think just the CGIS stuff.
Yeah, the CGIS. It's not CJIS. CGIS. What you
I
got?
spoke with Carlita Stevens with PBI. She is over the CGIS program, and she said that we would not have to be CGIS compliant because we do not deal with FBI or TBI records.
Super. That's that. All right. Good job. Yeah, thanks, Jerry, for doing all that. Appreciate it. All right. Next is discussion regarding finalization of state board mission/goals for public disclosure. Everybody's homework. All right. So let's just open up the floor. Go ahead, Mr. Frank.
Dr. Karpos is, I liked her mission statement, and has everyone read it? Have you read it, Mike? Everyone? And I entertain the motion to accept that as our mission statement.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor is to approve and publish Dr. Mary Karpos's mission statement as emailed. Debate and discuss.
It's on the
Oh, here we go.
on the screen. If
I'd just like to make one clarification that I actually wrote this while I was listening to the ideas that Lee and Jerry were talking about. So I don't take authorship of it. This was just summarizing what I was hearing in terms of the ideas and the work that they had put forth.
Yeah, we
Yes, and-
merged, this was at the last
Yes.
public meeting we sat in. We took some words out rephrased a few things. It was a group effort, actually. Yeah, it was a group effort. Absolutely. So,
This was
but
only a group effort.
just for motion purposes, since you emailed it and put it in writing. If there is no debate and discuss, all those in favor, aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The mission statement as composed by Dr. Mary Karpos in email to everyone has been passed and will be published. We is now adopted. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. We now have a mission statement. Next on the list is update on Thomas query data spreadsheet. Oh, wait.
Yeah, I thought,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, let me go back. We're not done. The goals. Let's finalize those.
Lee, can you forward me? I can't find it. You said it was May 21st that you sent it? I'd love to put up on the screen. Can someone forward it to me so I can put it up on the screen? Because I just can't find it in my email. Thank you. I'm gonna make a new Word document and we can just work off of that. If I could just get what we already have.
These are good. And if someone has, I mean, Jerry and I came up with these and we talked about them. If we need to add some safety, and that could be safety of citizenry. I mean, might sound better. I put Americans in because if someone gets out, crosses the border, kills somebody in Alabama that shouldn't have been let out in Tennessee. I mean, but I understand we're here for Tennesseans, so we could leave out the Americans. I mean, what do you guys think? Comment?
Ask you to type maybe some more so we have, can I read a few to you?
Yeah,
We'll look at how they
yeah.
merge together. if
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
mind.
So I'll make this one number 6.
Goal, enhance correctional policies. Goal, ensure fairness in decision-making, and I think this overlaps with a lot of what Lee's got up there. Goal, promote accountability. Goal, prioritize public safety.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I need to make that bigger or can everyone see that?
That's good.
How's that?
Safety of Tennesseans. I like that.
Okay, so we're taking out America?
Yeah.
Yeah, take out American
yeah.
citizens. Just put Tennesseans.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Safety of Tennesseans, true. Uniformity is whether you're in Northeast or you're out in River Bend, I think that's something that I know what was her name? Linda
Thomas.
I mean, that was a big thing is they wanted wherever you are to get treated equally. Sanctions, equality of sanctions has to do with, what are we talking about there? Race, creed? And maybe that one's not necessary.
And can we do uniformity and equality of
Fairness,
sanctions?
your fairness, right? Quality of, fairness.
Well, I was gonna suggest combining 2 and 7. So you got ensure uniformity, fairness, and decision making.
Right.
I want to put, I think we can even add 3 in there too,
Yeah, you could.
right?
Uniformity, fairness, and decision making in.
Sanctions and decision making. Quality of sanctions.
But I think you could leave it right there. I think that's general enough. Ensure uniformity and fairness in decision making.
For the lay people across the land to understand what we mean, and number 2, should we say ensure uniformity across the state? So they don't misunderstand, we're just talking about not just talking about uniformity on our board, but we're talking about uniformity across the state. Just an
About
idea.
uniformity and fairness in decision-making across the state.
Ensure uniformity and fairness in decision-making across the state. And do we capitalize state in this case or not? I think we can take out equality of sanctions. I think that's encompassed in number 2. I think it's part of it. Can we use the word correctional staff? Is that more correct, Mr. Stahl? Okay. Independent
And
auditor.
I will say,
liaison.
about this point, part of the conversation that Jerry and I had with Tony Parker was he related to us his impression that sentencing credits are an important part of both inmate and the correctional officer sort of roles. It's a tool that he felt when he was in that position was useful for both them and for the correctional officers. So, you know, the way I read protection of inmates and correctional staff, to me, also includes protecting the fact that we do sentencing credits, because I think part of what the legislature wants to do is they want to preserve what we do now. And some states don't do sentencing credits. They've just gotten rid of them. But we want to develop ways that we can show the legislature, inmates and correctional officers and the citizens of Tennessee that this is good. We need to make sure that this process works, because if it doesn't, if it becomes so irrevocably broken, we're going to lose sentencing credits. We're just going to get rid of them. And then you don't have that tool at your disposal, which is a benefit to both inmates and correctional officers. So protection of inmates and correctional staff, to me, also extends to the idea that we're protecting the sanctity of sentencing credits. It's not required. I mean, the state can get rid of them anytime they want. And so if we want to keep the system that we have, which I do think is a good one, and I think you'll hear inmates say that they like to have the option to improve their status, and correctional officers use it as a tool and a benefit. So I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but after having that conversation with Tony Parker, it was relayed to me that if we do our job well, we can protect the entirety of the system and not let it become so irrevocably broken that sentencing credits across the board.
I agree with you. No, I think it's perfect.
Yeah,
Unless somebody
I'm
else
just sort of
thinks so.
describing something that I read into that as well. Protection of inmates and correctional staff protects the system as a whole. It improves the system as a whole, because they, quite frankly, the state doesn't need us. They can just get rid of sentencing credits, just get rid of the whole problem. But part of what we can do is we can show that we can keep the system we have, keep the carrot, keep the stick, and do it in the best way possible.
I like it. Number 4, independent auditor / liaison working for the public and legislature ensuring TDOC compliance. Independent agency, independent. I just don't like slashes. We're either one or the other, right? No, I mean, but it gives us, like, we know what we're trying to say, right? So maybe independent agency, independent,
And I would,
like, I don't, yeah, I mean, like, it's that's true.
Generic, that's why I said promote accountability. It doesn't necessarily label us as auditors, but we're a body that promotes accountability.
I liked what Dr. Carpos just said, because when I previously read that, I found number 6, well, what is now number 6. I really like it because it's promoting accountability. Now, that's a great general statement because it's accountability of inmates and it's accountability of correctional staff and it's accountability of wardens and it's accountability of TDOC and it's accountability, it's everybody, right, across the board. So I think we could probably take out 4 and make 6 number 4. How does everybody feel about that?
And I would just comment also that, for these goals, I think it's important to remember that anytime we have, a goal, we're going to have to ask ourselves, how are we going to accomplish the goal, right? That's going to be the next step. So we have our mission, now we have the goals. And it's good. It may be hard to quantify how are we going to accomplish being an independent auditor, liaison, working for the public. That's just kind of who we are. It's kind of what we do, which is great. But, would we be able to break that down further and talk about on a monthly basis, how are we accomplishing that goal? If we can't really do that, then it may not be a goal. It may just be more of a, who we are. And that's a good point. I mean,
But I mean, it works here. Yeah. I don't think you do. Yeah.
Well, that'll be in the description of how to accomplish that goal, right? So it'll be goal 4 is promote accountability, and then they'll go, you will go down and promote accountability means, and this is how we're doing it, right? So that'll all be in there. And honestly, how they interpret promote accountability, I would almost say they're all their answers are going to be right. Are they promoting accountability of inmates? Yes. Are you promoting accountability of wardens? Yes. Are you promoting accountability of TDOC? Yes. Right? So it's all of the above. Okay, number 5, enhance correctional policies. Any input on that one?
that was one of Mary's. What do you mean by that, Mary?
Well, it's actually in the mission statement itself. And so this was just for me kind of a placeholder, but here's some of the ideas I put. Review existing correctional policies related to sentence credits, identify areas for improvement in current policies. Develop and update policies based on best practices and research. So those are just the ideas that I was thinking about. Trying to flesh out that first term in the mission statement, enhancing correctional policy. So what would we actually do that would accomplish that?
Do we want to keep number 5 as a goal? Or do we want to,
Or do you feel that that's already subsumed in accountability? Yeah.
I think so too. Yeah, and without
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
too specific. And I think if we put that on there, we're gonna need a whole subcommittee, right? And I think maybe down the road when we're all really good at what we're doing and we understand everything in 6 months, a year, 2 years, when we've got more data, we can add that in and create that as an additional goal down the road. But for now, I think just if we get to it, we get to it. If we don't, we don't. Yeah. But it's a great idea.
so we're going to take out enhanced correctional policies? And those sub goals would fall under number 3 or number 4 more appropriately. Not that we have to publish the sub goals,
Okay.
but just sort of keeping it for future reference. If we've already identified some sub goals, then are we saying that those sub goals are ones that would fit under promote accountability instead of enhanced correctional policies? And that's why we're getting rid of 5?
Yes.
Yeah, and actually those would be objectives under the goals. So
Okay.
we don't necessarily have to state what our objectives are.
No, and I
In the
wasn't
goal,
planning on
right?
it. I
Okay.
wasn't going to put anything other than just the mission and the goals. But if we're talking about it now, it helps to have it somewhere. So we're not trying to think about what did we say that was good. At some point, we'll get to objectives or sub goals or whatever. So no, that anything other than the mission statement and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 won't be on the website. But I'm just putting it up there because we're spitballing and it may be useful to us in the future.
5 really is similar to 1.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, does anybody have preference on language for 1 versus 5? Because they're kind of the same thing, but they're also different. So, Mr. Lindsay, do you have an opinion? All right. Is anybody,
So we want to change 1 to reflect 5.
well, I think, well, it depends. Who feels, does anybody? No, I like it. No, it's fine. But do we want it at the front or at the bottom?
I like the idea that Tennessee legislature took the initiative to create this board, first in the country like this, and I think we're putting our stamp on the rest of the nation by talking about the safety of Tennesseans.
So you like Tennesseans better?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I like your words. Y'all got rid of
Okay,
everything else.
so safety of Tennesseans. Okay.
Y'all got rid
So,
of everything else,
and
Lee, didn't
there's a great little acronym called BLUF, bottom line up front, right? You put your bottom line up front and that's it, right? Safety of Tennesseans, that's the bottom line up front. I just think safety of Tennesseans, period, right? I think is great. And I also would like to just go ahead and throw in, coming on board August 1 of last year and speaking with Lieutenant Governor's staff and other people, these 4 things are exactly the legislative intent of creating this board. It was protection of inmates and protection of the correctional staff, right? They wanted everybody to be held accountable. They wanted uniformity across the state, and they wanted to protect the citizens of Tennessee. So I think going back to the original foundation that was laid for this board and the intent from day one, I think we have now come full circle and created those exact goals into exactly what we were meant to be. And I'm so proud of us. Again, it took us longer to figure out the bio thing than do this whole other thing. It's way more important.
Can I just ask, do we,
Yes, thank you, Lee, for putting that together. And thank you, Dr. Carpos, as well, for giving us a great jumping out point. And Jerry, that's right. Jerry, also, I really appreciate you giving us something to work with because that's so important. He's going to change all our language anyway before he
no, this is it. What I've highlighted is what will go on the website. I mean, I want everyone to feel comfortable with that, but for safety of Tennesseans, so do we want to put like a verb in front of that? Because the goal, like we've got ensure uniformity, protection, promote, and then we've just got safety of Tennesseans. Do we want to like promote safety of Tennesseans, ensure safety of Tennesseans? Our goal is to, it's hard to say our goal is safety of Tennesseans. Prioritize, ensure, promote.
Okay, so I like prioritize only because we already used ensure. And we have ensure uniformity, protection of inmates, promote accountability, right? So prioritize the safety of Tennesseans. Just because each one could be different.
Get rid of that.
And that's an aesthetic thing, not.
And maybe on 3, instead of protection of, how about protect inmates and correctional staff?
Okay.
I agree with that also, because that's the correct tense. That's right. For those of us that might be a little OCD about some things, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's go ahead and I'm just gonna read them. Prioritize safety of Tennesseans, ensure uniformity and fairness in decision-making across the state, protect inmates and correctional staff, and then promote accountability. Motion on the floor is to approve and publish those 4 goals as stated as the Inmate Disciplinary Oversight Board's goals.
Second.
Any debate and discuss? If there is no debate and discuss, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion is passed. The goals, as stated, will be published to the website and adopted. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. We now have a mission statement and goals.
So that motion includes the mission statement then?
Yeah, well, we already did the mission statement one.
Oh, yeah. Did we
Yeah.
vote on that?
We voted on that,
Okay.
yes. So mission statement has been approved, goals have been approved. And now we need to figure out the subcommittee for further policy procedure development. Do we have any volunteers? I'm not opposed to voluntolding somebody. On your mic.
I will volunteer for that if, I mean,
Well, I
or,
think,
I mean, do you,
Mhm.
you said, do you have volunteers? I would, to deal with responsibilities of the board.
well, I think, and I would actually like for you to head that subcommittee because you have a lot of really great ideas and your brain works in a way that you can funnel through multiple different paths and thoughts and ideas and get it down on paper. And thus far, every time you've brought us something, right, that you've worked on, we might make a few changes to it, but we adopt it. And so, and like I said earlier, bringing us the bones, giving us something that we can just all look at and go, okay, change that word, move that up here, move that over there, and we're done. I mean, we finished, you brought that to us both, everybody brought something, and in 10 minutes, we had mission and goals, right? So, and I would like for you to head that subcommittee. Now, that's not to say like you can't be like, hey, Jerry, Quantel, Betsy, Vanessa, whoever, can you help me with this or do you have input?
Let me ask you this, how would something like this work? Does there need to be three of us? I mean, does
How many do you
anybody
think
else
you
would
need?
like to do it? Jerry,
So see, okay, so if is there anybody else that wants to help?
anybody would like to help on?
Should we do one from each?
That would be very appropriate, right?
Not region, but a pointer.
Yeah, that would probably be a good
So
idea.
the House, Senate, and the executives represented on whatever.
So that
So
would be you.
Would you? Yeah, there's only you.
All right.
That
So
was
motion
set
on
up,
the
done.
floor is,
I wasn't even gonna pick him, and
he just
that was a good
volunteered.
move.
Look at him,
Look
all
at
by
that.
accident, I think. That was, well, too late, sir.
And
No, you can't.
of course,
There's too many mics on.
and of course, I mean, as the goals or anything, we
Oh,
put it
Quantel.
out there, and then I might say, Betsy, what do you think of this? Or Mary might call and say, have you thought of this? Or, I mean, this isn't a, dictatorship, like, this is what we're gonna, this is all you get, be happy with it.
No, you just are going to keep the ships right.
Okay.
Right. You're just going to steer the ship and say, this is what we're working on right now. This is what I'm taking input out right now. Right. So you can funnel it all into one nice neat little
Sure.
package. But yeah, absolutely. Everybody gets a say.
Does anybody,
You'll all get a say when we vote on it.
on the
Period.
priorities and the policies, tell me if I'm, the ED, the chairman, the vice chairman, is there anything else that we need? Because like we were talking about, what if he went off the rails and we got to get rid of him? He's not, but
Well, I think we're
I mean,
talking
you
about
see what I'm-
I think we're talking about two different
would that
things.
be part of policies and procedures?
So I personally think that's two different things. I think
Okay.
if we're talking about job descriptions for different roles, that's going to take some time for people to work through. These are the roles we've identified. Now, what are those job descriptions? That is a job in and of itself.
Okay.
And then you're thinking about policies. How is the board going to conduct itself, generally speaking? So I think Betsy had mentioned some things last time. I mean, having a communications policy, having a public request policy,
Okay.
having a inclement weather policy, having a whatever policy. And, Jerry had mentioned last time that what was the council or the board that you mentioned have a lot of their policies on their website?
All the, CTAS.
Right.
County Technical Agency.
Okay.
So we probably need one subcommittee to just look at the roles and the job descriptions that have already been identified, the three that have already been identified. And then you probably need another subcommittee for people to start taking a look at other policies that need to be developed. Because that's a lot for just one, even just three people.
Okay.
and then I think the other question for your subcommittee would be, we have these three roles identified. We'll create what we think are the appropriate limits and boundaries for those roles and expectations and all that. But then the next question is, are there any others we're not thinking of? Do we want to have a secretary? Do we want to have
Right.
whatever? And I think that would be a good subcommittee for you all. And then having a separate subcommittee of people to be researching other policies that the board just needs to generally have just in place for things that come up. I mean, we don't have a lot of policies right now. I mean, things come up. And so I think those are two different subcommittees,
Okay.
personally.
So I'm
Did you have something?
people or the weather and.
It's up to you all. That's just how I see it. I mean, if one subcommittee wants to take all of that on, that's fine with me. I think that's a lot of work, especially, and I would say we're gonna have the Thomas training tomorrow. So starting Friday, we'll start having some stuff. So these subcommittees are gonna be in addition to the daily duties of reviewing the reports and all that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't want to put any subcommittee together that I feel like would be too much. And then you've got some people that are just reviewing reports, and then you've got these people who are reviewing reports and trying to develop all this stuff as well.
Okay.
That might be a lot. So, just thinking from a quality standpoint, we may want to understand that by the end of this week, starting of next week, there's going to be some real substantive work to do. In addition to that substantive work, what are some of these other duties that the board members can absorb, to make sure that the board is moving along? So if everybody's on a subcommittee, then that probably spreads the work out,
Would
fair.
this be something where we would like talk to you and get your?
You can always talk to
I
me.
mean,
I mean,
you
I'm not,
understand what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like-
I'm not a voting member of the board. I mean, anyone can always talk to me. And we can always go to the AG's office if we have legal questions, if we want anything reviewed. But I would recommend that you have the subcommittee, that the committee members talk amongst themselves to develop something. And then whenever something is ready to be brought to the rest of the board for discussion and voting, that we just put it on the agenda and we do that.
Okay.
And then after we vote on it, if the board wants the AG's office to review the final product for legality, we could have them do that. But if we ask them to review it beforehand, and we don't even know what we're going to approve, we'll probably get suggestions from them and then change it and then go back to them, and it may just be a little bit too much.
Gotcha.
So that was kind of my point, putting on the agenda, the subcommittee appointments idea, was just trying to identify maybe some areas that we need some subcommittees, but not burden the board members with too much stuff, because we're getting to that point where some substantive work is going to be done. So I think the roles and responsibilities, identifying roles is good, developing policies that people have researched and said this, or I've been on a board and this is a policy, that's good. And then any other subcommittee that we think would be beneficial for the benefit of the board.
Okay, so is there anybody that would like to volunteer to head up a subcommittee for people, for positions versus policy procedure? To split them up? Well, are you gonna do people or are you gonna do policy? I'll give you your
What would
choice.
you like?
Okay. Will fall under the executive director. Okay, so we'll start with that,
I heard.
with people. Okay. Does anybody want to work on policy procedure? Thank you, Ms. Wiseman. So.
Well, I would take a look at Betsy. Jerry said that's their website has just a lot, right, of different policies.
It doesn't have, they've revamped their website. It doesn't have as many there.
Yeah.
Municipal.
But you could probably review what they have, and it would give us a good start. And then we could say, do we want do we want to develop a policy that talks about this? Do we want to develop a policy that talks about that? I mean, I could do it all, but you know, I mean, I appreciate having, you know, your all's input into it. I mean, everyone here has been on boards and councils and served with
Right.
groups of people. And, you know, I may just not get anything. So, yeah, just, you know, just. Yeah, I think
That's
that's great.
perfect.
Do you need any help with that?
Yeah, I'm sure she'll reach out and find somebody. She's very resourceful, should she need some help. And, you know, myself, Mr. Lindsay, and I'm sure Dr. Carpos would be willing to help you with that.
So just another suggestion on creating groups. I'm reading from the statute. And it's 4121-1003. The authority to develop and implement guidelines for reviewing the grant denial and removal of good institutional behavior credits. And so maybe create a committee who's going to work at developing these guidelines. It says the board shall review and reevaluate the guidelines at least annually and provide copies of the guidelines to the governor, Speaker of the Senate, Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Commissioner of Correction, and the appropriate standing committees of the Senate and the House of Representatives. So it seems that those guidelines would guide how we're even going to be reviewing what we learn about tomorrow in training.
Okay, do we want to shift? I think I felt a shift in responsibility just right there. Like, we need to do that first.
We can be doing it all
We're running out of
simultaneously.
people.
That's like the heart of our work, but this other
That's-
stuff is
Right.
just necessary.
There's no timeline on it. I mean, you know, I think the subcommittee proposed by Mary is an important one and probably needs to be prioritized. But if you're on another subcommittee, I mean, we're not giving anybody deadlines to say, you know, just sort of whenever you can, as you can. That's helpful. So we can have multiple people on different subcommittees. I mean, if you have a subcommittee head, then they can sort of prioritize, you know, helping people out and stuff.
Does anybody want to take that subcommittee? Like,
I'd like to work with Quantel on that subcommittee.
well, Quantel hasn't volunteered to work on the
I know.
subcommittee, so there's
I would
that.
love to work with
My
Quantel
only,
on
you
that
know, I don't
subcommittee.
mind, like, I think that that's super important. I think after the training tomorrow, you can have a better idea of what we're looking at, right? What the beast is that we're trying to control. So it feels a little like, to me, it feels very vast right now, assigning a subcommittee to that, because I'm not sure of where what we're trying to rein in and how much we're trying to rein in and where our guidelines are. But I mean, we need to get at least, even though we don't necessarily have a clear picture of what we need to do in that area, we need to get somebody who's going to show up tomorrow, or some peoples that are going to show up tomorrow with that in mind while they're listening to the training. I think that would be very beneficial. So, I mean, I'll join in on that one too. That's a big one. So I don't think I can be head of a subcommittee if I'm already the chair. I don't think that's how that works. So if Dr. Carbos, if you'd be willing to take that appointment, you can be the chair of that subcommittee. And then Quantel and I will, if it's okay with Mr. Lindsay, he and I will
Yep.
assist you in that.
Well, and I'd also like to pull in.
Well,
from-
but he also didn't volunteer.
Well, but if we're looking at representation from each authority of
Division.
appointment.
Well, we didn't do that for people. Are we gonna do that for this one?
I thought
Do
we
you think
did
we need
do
to-
that for people with Mike.
Oh, not for people, for policy. We didn't do it for policy. Okay. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all voting on it, right? At the end of the day, we're just bringing bare bones. I don't think it necessarily has to be one from each division on the development or the creation of a framework or the bones, right? Because we're all going to come together and every single person is going to be able to give their input.
Well, you just answered my question, Chairwoman. I was want to know, were we going with representation for every subcommittee? But you answered that.
I think if we had 2 more people, I would feel better about doing that because the workload would be distributed a little bit better. But right now we're just so short. Now, right, Dr. Carbos is asking Mr. Dunn to be on 2 subcommittees and also do his work.
Well, that's the thing. If we do it that way, then Mike has to be on all of them. And
That's right. And that's not fair, right? So that's not cool. No, I agree with you, Mr. Stahl. Absolutely.
Finish our agenda before we address that point.
Yeah, that's fine. So I think you represent middle, do you not? Then we don't need Mr. Dunn. Let's not ask him to be on 2 subcommittees.
No, I said appointing authority, not region.
Oh, appointing authority. Well, then you would take, I just can't, like, unless, I'm not going to ask you, but if you're going to volunteer to be on more than 1 subcommittee, then you're going to take my place. Because Dr. Carpos was appointed by the same appointing authority as I was. So it would be you, Mr. Lindsay, and Dr. Carpos.
And if I could prevail on you to
Oh,
consider.
sorry,
the
he
fact
can't turn
that
his
you
microphone on
have,
and say yes.
Experience, institutional experience with sentence credits. And so too does Quantel. He has an expertise in that area as well. So
Yes,
that was
ma'am.
my thinking.
I do think that the experience in reviewing the sentencing credits in the past will have a positive effect. And I do strongly agree with the equal representation. And if you'd like me to skip, well, please not here.
Well, and
Um,
if I'm tracking you correctly, yes. If you could step out of that one and step into this one,
You weren't tracking me correctly.
well, that's what I want you to do.
I was wanting to say something, but he's not here, so I'm gonna wait till he's here.
But
What I want to say is,
Lee's the same appointing authority.
We are just so he's not double assigned.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we decided we were going to do that.
Let's hear what you have to say down the road about how many
Thank you.
representatives from your appointing.
that's what I
authority.
want to address, but Lee's not here and I want him to hear, so.
Yeah.
we'll
Are you
take,
going to address the next agenda item? Is that what you're,
2 down, I think.
2 down,
well, let's
3
wait
down.
for it.
3 down.
Let's wait for it. I agree with that statement as well. Yeah. When Mr. Frank comes back, then we'll finalize it.
Thomas Query data spreadsheet, by next week, they are hoping to get us back an example of the spreadsheet that we asked them to fill out with the Thomas data. So we should be able to look at that, and then it won't be the most up-to-date information, but it'll be an example of what the most up-to-date information will look like in July. And then I will send that out to everybody. And you can give me your thoughts on the categories that we've identified, the way the information is presented, et cetera, et cetera. And on the data subscription licensing discussion, I talked with STS. They said that they don't have a list. What we can do is we let them know what subscription we want, and they will get the pricing back to us. I've already let them know that I think we're going to want an Adobe 365 subscription. And I asked for pricing on an Access subscription, Microsoft Access subscription. That's something that maybe we can use once we start getting this Excel data to organize it and present it in a way that's beneficial. But what I would say to everybody is if they have a preference for a data licensing subscription, just let me know. I'll get the pricing for it, and then I'll bring the pricing back to everybody and we can decide. So like the access subscription, we may not want access. We may want to use another data service to organize the Excel spreadsheet data and all that. So that was just something I threw out there to get an idea about what that might look like pricing wise. But you know, just think about it. We don't have to answer the question today, but just everybody think about what they think they might be most comfortable with. Get that to me. I will get it to them and they will let me know what the price is.
Oh, that sounds great.
And this is one of those areas where I know I've spoken to several of you about the idea of bringing on somebody with technology background to advise us. Otherwise, we're offered a menu. We may know some of the things on the menu, but we're not subject matter experts in that technology area. There are people out there who are retirees who would be eligible to come back as 120-day on a 120-day contract. Doesn't mean that they work 120 days. You just use them the days or hours that you have questions. And you don't have to pay them benefits or anything like that. They keep receiving their retirement, but it seems quickly that we're going to be the recipient of data and information, and having some technological expertise to help with the decision making might be a good thing to consider. And that's what that bullet point is underneath this item on the agenda.
So is Lee no longer our?
No, Ms. Wiseman, we're replacing him. Okay, so go ahead, Mr. Dunn, since you were waiting on Mr. Frank to return.
Well, can we just to close up this agenda item, to Mary's point, everyone could think about one of the things that we'll have to do at some point is present our thoughts to the legislature. And so if we find somebody who can take the data that we're getting and really put it in a very exciting sort of PowerPoint access format that, you know, you can do that, then I think that will be helpful as we start thinking about how are we going to present the information that we're getting. And so when you think about the data licensing stuff, think about maybe what you're comfortable with. And you say, all right, you know, I can take this and I know how to make something look really good so that when we're in front of the legislature, we can give them that picture. They're not going to want to see an Excel spreadsheet, right? They're going to want to see something pretty.
Numbers, graphs, all those, the other really, yeah.
Moving
Mhm.
animations,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. But, you know, just thinking about that in the future, I think will be good. So when we think about data subscription services, think about it in those terms as well. What do I know? What can we use to deliver the information to other people in a way that's succinct, beneficial, et cetera? That was it.
Okay.
ECM subscription update. What's ECM? Okay.
Well, I thought we just were talking about the ECM subscription update, were we not? Oh, so Dr. Carpus was talking about the bullet point under the ECM
Under the
subscription.
ECM.
I just assumed since we were talking about the bullet point, we were also talking about the ECM. Okay, never mind. Let's go back and close out the previous agenda item instead. So, Mr. Dunn, if you could go ahead, you have the floor.
Thank you, ma'am. Skipping ahead to close out the previous, to the 1:30 portion of our agenda.
Okay,
Update regarding-
wait, I'm gonna just cut you off. I really want to stay on task. We're gonna, let's finish the subcommittee appointments. And then I know you're chomping at the bit to give us an update on the 1:30 item, but I want to go back and work with what we have here today. Like, we need to close that out first, and then we can move on to the ECM and then the update.
The point I was going to make to close out the previous has to do with the next agenda item. Clear as mud. Hear me out. Decide what you want to after that.
Well, if I hear you out, we might as well skip ahead. I mean, I'm not going to assign people to committees that aren't here. Right. Go ahead. Clearly, I'm not going to win this one, Mr. Dunn. Clearly. Go ahead.
I could have already been finished. What I was going to say is one of my favorite verses in the King James Version is when Peter is addressing, excuse me, Jesus is addressing Peter when he says, "O ye of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? I have received word that we do have another appointment confirmed, and it's happening this month, and it's representing the East region by the Speaker of the House. So with all that said, we will have two, and the third is directly behind, probably a week or two after that. So with that said, we will have equal representation opportunities for these subcommittees planning out.
Thank you for that information. It helps us not today, Mr. Dunn. It helps us in a month. And hopefully in a month, we can reshuffle maybe some of these committees and apply equal representation in the down tray. I'm going to go back to what we were previously discussing in that the most important one right now is the guidelines. And to echo Mr. Stahl, that one needs to have equal representation. And that's the most important one right now. So I'm of the mindset to make sure that there is one from each appointing authority. Dr. Carpos is correct in that. That's a very good point, not division, appointing authority, that we could have Dr. Carpos chair that subcommittee with Mr. Dunn and Mr. Lindsay assisting if all three are willing to accept those appointments.
I'm willing, and I think it does help us to understand everything today.
And then we shifted a little bit while you were absent. That's we waited for you to come back. Okay, so then I'm going to move on to your subcommittee for people because we pulled Dunn. I just didn't feel comfortable unless he wanted to having Mr. Dunn on two of these committees, right? So it'll be the three of us. And then the policy procedure will be Ms. Wiseman, assisted by Mr. Stahl. And then is these other two, I suppose when the first one comes, we can shift them over here. Or were you looking to be replaced on this one?
Whatever they would volunteer to do. We need to ask that person.
Let's see what their background is. Okay. Yeah, but the thought is that either replacing somebody on another subcommittee or funneling into this one. And then as we get them, we'll just arrange them. But again, I think that, especially, Dr. Carpos read it from the statute. That one needs to come first. So is everybody okay with those appointments? Does anybody have any comments? Any file for, against, you don't like where you're at? You want to do something else?
To add to that, my involvement, I'd be happy to participate in both until the next appointment arrives and then make a better decision then.
Would you be happy to participate in all three, Mr. Dunn?
I'd be honored.
See, you never should have said anything earlier because, you're that guy. You're the one.
I ain't scared.
Yeah. But I'm sure, listen, we're happy to have you. We're glad you're the one. Okay, so now moving on to ECM subscription update. Mr. Stoll?
Yeah, so probably have a policy, right? Policy. that might have public correspondence, legislative correspondence, whatever, right? So subfolders. So what I would like everyone to do is I have some ideas. I'm going to put it together in an email. I'm going to get it to the team that's been assigned to us, and they're going to build something out. Probably have something in place by the end of next week. So as you all think about this stuff, let me know what you would like to have as sort of a parent class, like a big idea folder. And then if there are specific subfolders that you would like to have it's going to make your job easier, let me know that as well. The other thing about that is they can assign different metadata tags to all the information. So we can format what's the information that's inside those folders in any way we want. So if you want an identifier so that you sort through that information by date, if we want Thomas number, if we want whatever. So I've got some ideas. I'm going to be doing a lot of that, but I just wanted to throw it out there to everybody. If they have some ideas like, hey, I'd really like, this, that it's going to be helpful to me or whatever, we can do that now as we build out this system. I know it'll make more sense once we see it and once it's built out a little bit, but I just wanted to give everybody a heads up in case they have some real ideas. Like, I really like the way I saw this done once, or I saw that done once. Can we do something like this? I can start having those conversations with them now. But
We set
Anyway.
up a training,
yeah, once it's
like
built,
with those people?
yes, once it's built out, I think it would be beneficial to do that. So this is very, very preliminary. But if you are familiar with anything like this and you do have preferences, I can start inputting those preferences now so that as we build it out, it will look like something you already recognize. But it'll get built out and then I'll show everybody and we'll walk through it and we'll see it and all that. So probably, I'm hoping by the end of next week, that's in place and I'll have something to show everybody. But that's sort of the difference between like the ECM stuff and the data subscriptions. Does that make sense?
Yes, so the ECM is
Electronic.
like
It's
a,
like
like a
the-
share drive.
Like a shared drive.
Okay,
exactly-
yeah,
that's
so
exactly
any
it.
share drive, like, yeah, that, so, just think about share drives that you've used and how, like, I have a few ideas,
Great,
right? Yeah.
great. Yeah. Get me
Um,
those and I'll give that to the team and we'll start building that out. So as a sub point in there, I know it was brought up that we can start hiring people and we have we have ideas, right? Do we need a legislative liaison? Do we need a tech person? Do we need a attorney, whatever. So I just put on there, we can start thinking about that. The only caution I would have is we probably want to be judicious about our hires. So, we probably need to prioritize. And the reason I say that is because hiring someone is going to take some time. Just creating a job description, finding people, going through the hiring process, onboarding them. So if we decide we want to hire somebody at where we are right now as a board, and we're still trying to do a lot. I mean, we're still sort of paddling underwater pretty quickly. If we want to add a responsibility to all of that and say we do want to hire somebody, let's hire somebody that we really, really need, and then we can hire somebody else who's maybe a less of a priority as we get smoother in our functioning. But I am open to hiring anybody. If the board members decide, I really think we need a tech person, or I really think we need an assistant, or I really think we need this, we can do it. Just think about that process takes away from some of the time we spend on some of this other stuff.
Dr. Carpos, refresh my memory, it's in the statute for an assistant, yes?
I'm sorry.
Assistant in the statute, is it not?
I'm sorry, say it one more time. I
In the
didn't hear the beginning part.
I said, refresh my memory, Dr. Carpos. In the statute, it states for an executive director and an assistant, correct?
An assistant is
Yes.
mentioned. That
Yes.
The board certainly has the ability to hire all kinds of.
Right, but I just want to make sure we meet I want to meet the statute before, and I think if we have an assistant, maybe the assistant has some PowerPoint, Adobe spread, you know what I mean? Like some technology, so certain skill sets that we can maybe, because I don't think we need a full-time, like you said, the 120 day, right? Like, but if we have an assistant who's like some of these younger people are super proficient in all of these things, right? Like that we don't need to hire a separate. So maybe we see what we can't find. Do you feel like you need help right now?
I don't need help. I mean, I can handle it. I would like to have someone who will help, but my concern first and foremost is just prioritizing the needs of the board. I really want to get you all to a point where on a daily basis, you feel very comfortable waking up and doing work and getting things done and sort of, moving forward with our mission. And then I feel like I could take some time and do some of these other things like hiring someone or whatever. If you all want me to hire someone, I will. But I mean, just the hiring process can take a couple of months, you know? So I don't want to take my attention away from the needs that you all have because I feel like that's more important for right now. So the short answer to your question is yes, but the long answer is, if you want me to hire someone, I will hire someone. But I have not done that yet because I just think I really want to get you all in a good spot. If you all feel like you're in a good spot and I can take time and do some of these other things, I will. I don't feel that way. So, you know, I'd take any feedback you all have on it.
I would say that, and you had mentioned it, when you think you need someone, that you will come to us and say, hey, I've got an exact job description for this person. You and I talked about this a while back, instead of just hiring somebody and then you're trying to get us situated and you're also trying to find them work to do when you're not really to that point yet. So, and I trust you and when you need somebody.
That's kind of the
do.
way I've looked at it. But I mean, if there's any thoughts or feelings from the other board members that they feel like things would be smoother if we had a more robust staff, I am open to those. Don't be
So
shy about saying.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the ECM
Yeah.
and what that means and why we may need more sophisticated technological support with regard to an ECM. So an ECM, electronic case management, can be something as simple as a data warehouse. This is a paperless way to look at a whole bunch of different pieces of information. And as you described, it has folders. And so if you're interested in something, you open that folder and you look through there, et cetera, et cetera. The power of an ECM is it being able to be queried and accept prompts. So that's not a data warehouse. That is a more sophisticated way to say, look, I don't want to open this folder and look at everything in this folder. I want to look specifically at things that occurred at this one location that involved the following characteristics. So I want to look only at such and so prison, and I want to look only at incidents that were of this specific type. So an ECM that's sophisticated and can allow you to query and do prompts is different than, well, I'm just going to open prison number 13's folder and I'm just going to read down there till that 3-character incident type jumps off the page. And then I'm going to have to keep track of how many of those. So one is a data warehouse, not sophisticated, can't take orders from you. The other is quite sophisticated and it's built around queries and prompts. And that's why I'm suggesting that we should consider bringing on someone who has that kind of background in creating an ECM that can actually take requests from us and in a very concise way, deliver it back to us. Think about it this way as an analogy. If you go to the doctor's office and they look you up and they bring up stuff about you, that's the most unsophisticated data warehouse. But if a doctor sat down and said to himself or herself, I'd like to know how many of my patients have type 2 diabetes. I don't want to look through every folder. I want this system to be able to generate that list of those type 2 diabetes patients that I'm servicing. And I have a subsequent question. Of those that I'm servicing, how many of them are insulin dependent? 3 seconds, it tells me that. So my purpose in providing that, because that's kind of an example we might all be able to relate to, is in thinking about how we want to look at incidents and disciplinaries and what types of incidents occurred and what types of results came from those incidents. We can go with just the garage of information and have to filter, filter, sort, sort, filter, filter, sort, sort. Or we can order on the front end something with query and prompt capability, but those aren't off the shelf things. You have to, in consultation with technologists, develop how that rationale is going to be implemented in your electronic management system. So it's a set of conversations. And that's where a technology consultant comes into play. The particular consultant that I was thinking about was the prior IT director for TDOC, and before that, he was the IT director for safety. So he's been retired. He has 120-day privilege or opportunity, would be somebody, and it doesn't have to be him, could be somebody else, but locating consultants who have brought up those kinds of prompt query electronic case management systems so that they can work with STS to build it, rather than just simply having them build us a system that's just, we're not looking through papers, but we're still spending hours looking at stuff, trying to sort out and filter what we need. I'm just looking for the most direct way that we can get our questions answered quickly.
What's the difference between this and what STS is doing with our query spreadsheet? I thought that's what we, and aren't we paying them for that? I thought we were getting that information from them.
So they are actually querying directly Thomas. Now we're talking about having a board data management system, because it has to go somewhere. Once you get that spreadsheet of information, that information has to be organized somewhere. Rather than have it just organized in an Excel spreadsheet, if you download that Excel spreadsheet into an ECM that has query and prompt capabilities, then it will answer your question instead of you just scanning through or using pivot tables. I don't know how many of you are familiar with how to use a pivot table in Excel, but when they give us that Excel spreadsheet, if you know how to do pivot tables, then you can do pivot tables and you can filter and sort. But if you don't, then this more sophisticated way of just being able to ask it a question. So these are, let's say, the 10 usual questions board members would want to ask. We come up with that list. And then they develop the logic behind asking and searching that data to answer that question for you.
But we couldn't get. Like what's
STS will be,
hiring?
okay, STS will be who actually deploys, creates and deploys the record management system. But STS as a group of people don't have the subject matter experts to know correctional data to say, and here's exactly what this board would want to know. They're technologists, you know, they manage data, they build theoretical boxes to put that data in, but they aren't in the business of deciding how that fuels decision-making. And so your consultant becomes that bridge. They hear from you, what kinds of decisions do you want to use this data to make? And then they translate that to the box builder and say, okay, here's how that works. And, you know, the advantage to getting somebody who did Thomas for 10 years is they already know the Thomas data and they can say, okay, what is it that you want to know? Well, they automatically know the tables and the fields to then translate that to them and say, okay, these are the data and fields. Then they run a test run and they show it to you and say, does this seem to answer your question? Is this what it is that you would like to see? So that consultant plays that bridging role between the actual person doing the job and the actual data builder itself.
I have some questions before I get too lost. So I was under the impression, clearly the wrong impression, that this was like a share drive where things were just going to be kept. And now what you're explaining is like something way more complex, and I'm not like, what's in these files? Are they scanned PDFs? Is it something that we entered? Is it the spreadsheets? Is it all the things? And does the technology have the capability, if I say I want any document we have that occurred, that relates to an incident that occurred on January 1st, 2024, it's going to scan PDFs, it's going to scan photos, it's going to scan JPEGs, it's going to scan spreadsheets, it's going to scan everything. So like, because what I'm hearing you say is a query into something that has a specific format for data. Like, I can't imagine a technology that the state owns that is also capable of scanning a scanned document and being able to pick out a date on it. Right.
Cognos.
So
We own several.
I just like, I didn't realize that this was so, is this what we're getting? Was that something that's complex is what she's talking about? And then to Ms. Wiseman's point, right? Like, I get what you're saying about having this person as a liaison who's got 10 years of TOMAS experience, but that person who has 10 years of TOMAS experience hasn't done our job. So, boots on the ground know what boots on the ground need. But I just, this seems to be a much larger thing than I was picturing I'm like, oh, I'm gonna save my document that I just typed today in my share drive. No.
Well, the difference is that it can be what we want it to be. So in its most basic form, what they can deliver to us in a bare bones form will be something very similar to a shared drive, where we can go in, we can put stuff there, and everyone can look at it. What Mary's saying is that it can be more. If we want it to be more, then we're going to need somebody who can, in her words, sort of translate what we want into what they can do for us. And that can look like a lot of different things. And that's why if we hire somebody who understands what can be, they can say to us, there's some options. This is what other people have done. This is what can be. And if you want any of this, tell me, and I will tell them to do it for you. But we don't have to. We can keep it very simple. So, or we can learn that process ourselves. To sort of Betsy's point, right? We've got an Excel spreadsheet that we've created, and we're going to get the information into it, and we can go through it, and we can sort it. We can do all that. To Mary's point about the pivot tables. So it's really what we want, and the more complicated that we want it to be, the higher the likelihood is that we're going to need somebody to help us with that. So for example, if you go to small claims court, you can probably represent yourself. If you're in front of Judge Judy, you represent yourself. But if you've got a complicated contract situation, or a murder case, you hire a lawyer. So if we want to keep things simple, we can do them. I can talk to these people and we can get something done that's very similar to a shared drive. We can do our Excel spreadsheets and get the data we want. We can do all of it. If, like Mary's saying, if we want something more sophisticated, then it's going to get to the point where we're going to be spending so much time trying to learn how to describe what we want, what we can do, what we can't do, that it's probably better just to hire somebody to do that for us. So that's the decision that we have to make, and we probably don't have to make it right now, but
So I was just gonna say, can we, because that's a lot to think about, right? Like not just in theory, like, because that would be a pretty big undertaking. It's a lot to think about. But I think it's a lot to think about in time as well. right? So I think, we're just barely going to go to Thomas training, D-board training tomorrow, right? So we don't know what we don't know. And I think to everybody's point that's contributed to this conversation, we take it piece by piece, right? How do you eat a whale? One bite at a time, right? So when we get to that point where we need something more complex, because we've learned, right, that no, this is beyond us. This is above my pay grade. We can no longer interpret for ourselves. Then we revisit, right, bringing in somebody at that point. And I think we would better understand, because you have a unique perspective in that, as far as TDOC or Thomas, like, you're ahead of us. So yes, you can see maybe some things that might be needed that we can't see yet. So let us catch up with you, right? And then that way, when we sit down as a board to discuss it, we all understand what everybody's talking about, right? And how this works and what it looks like. And yes, we can do this part, but we got to get somebody else to do that other part. So I think we could table it and maybe just periodically resurface it, right? Does that make
Yeah, and
sense?
I think maybe if Mary's willing to entertain this, if we wanted, we could invite this person. If he wouldn't be, be on the payroll yet, but I mean, if he wanted to come and sort of talk to us about the things that he could do for us, we might have a better idea about, whether we do want to hire him. Like he can probably describe to us, uh, some of the things that we're sort of thinking about big picture esoterically, but in a way that is more beneficial. I mean, he could probably describe the benefit, the value that he adds if we were to hire him.
Yeah,
better
I think
than we
that's
can.
that's
Just
important,
generally, I don't
right?
know if he'd be willing to do that, but if he were willing to maybe take 30 minutes, we could set up a conference call or a Zoom call and maybe figure out where that value is, and then we can have a fuller discussion on where we sit.
Maybe at our next agenda setting meeting, maybe.
And again, I mean, that would be, I don't know if Mary would be willing to talk with him and maybe ask him if he would be willing to do that. I don't want to,
My only concern is that we don't get too far down the road in discussion with STS about the ECM, so that they're thinking it's going to be one thing. And the sooner you figure out what it is that you're going to do, the more money you'll save doing it, because you haven't already, if you do this, that costs this. If you do this, it costs that, but it subsumed that. But it's not like, oh, well, we did that part. No, it's actually a different path. So that's all my concern is. Let's kind of settle this. I agree. Let's table it. Let's think on it. Let's have our training, all of that. And yes,
well, I
I'll
haven't talked
inquire.
to STS yet, except preliminarily. They haven't
Yeah.
done any actual work for us. So if we wanted to set something up with your gentleman next week, then we
Okay.
can talk with him, get his thoughts on what he can do for us and whatever, and then we can talk to STS after that, or amongst ourselves after that. If we want to wait till the next agenda setting meeting, it'll be several weeks, and we wouldn't have done anything in between that time. If we don't do anything with STS because we're waiting on him, but we're going to take a lot of time to get to him, then sort of not
Yeah.
utilizing that time to our advantage. But if we want to do something quickly where he can come in and talk to us, then I'm all for that. But I think Betsy had a thought.
Quick, what, do we have any idea what kind of cost if we did a 20-day contract, or?
It's right around $40 an hour.
Sounds like, and I'm all for, I understand my wife uses consultants that are smart people all the time. I mean, it's good to do. Yeah, I like the idea of working smarter instead of ridiculous busy work. If this can happen, is it the kind, in my mind, I'm thinking he comes and sets it up and he's like, thanks, bye. Or is it like somebody we keep, I mean, this would be like he did it for us, got us exactly what we wanted, and then he's done.
Yeah, 120-day person, and in fact, you can have multiple 120-day people. You're not obligated to use them 120 days.
Right.
You could use them some or none, and they can just, sit over here idle. But when you need them,
Yeah.
you've got access to them, and you don't have to use them for a full day if you want to
Sure.
use them for a
Yeah.
few hours or whatever. But, I just, looking at our budget, it doesn't seem like it would be likely that we could onboard a lot of people. So 120 day gives us the ability to have a stable of people who
And
might come in as needed.
right, and we
something
might,
like that.
we might need him for his 120 days and then we'll be maybe smooth sailing after that.
Or
We
even
might not,
45 days.
and we might not need him
Right.
past that, but
That's what I was thinking.
I would like to see, I would like to hear from him on what it is that he would do for us, like how he would, that way I can understand exactly what's, where we give the input and he does this and this and this, and then we get that, right? Like especially after tomorrow's, listen, we're getting all these pieces together. It's gonna happen. But yeah, if you could arrange that, that would be amazing.
Do you want to see a resume
Well,
before you decide about talking to him? I don't know.
I,
Or you don't.
Gary?
I've got a question. Which, to me, our number one priority will be setting up our review procedures, right? That's our main thing. Can we set up our review procedures and get our guidelines before we hire a consultant? Because to me, if we can get our review procedures and our policies established and voted on it the next time, then we could look at putting together the big picture then that this is what we
Yes.
can do after. Because I know y'all are gonna develop like a form that all of us could go in, like we review case number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there'd be a spot, Mike Dunn's reviewed it, Mary Carpus has reviewed, Betsy Wiseman's. You're looking at putting stuff like that into the system, right? We have a uniform, I guess, review form.
Yes, sir. That makes perfect sense. What you're describing is that, if it's agreed upon by the board that this is the way we'd like to look at certain things, and then have a way that we can store and save who has reviewed it and whether or not they've approved it or something like that. Yes, sir.
I know after tomorrow, our heads are gonna be this big because we learned so much, but do you think it's doable that we can put together the procedures and adopt them by the next open meeting? So we're reviewing.
I think a lot of that depends on whether or not we actually see the spreadsheet data next week. It's hard to know till we actually see the test run of what this data looks like. To be thinking about, so what would we do with this? So I don't want to speak before having actually seen that test run. Because if we have to go back and forth on that test run, it might take longer. But I agree with you. It'd be great if we could be on it next. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great. It'd be amazing. What's this guy's name?
Don Baisden,
Baisden.
Baisden.
Don Baisden. Okay.
Well, I would say if we're not serious about hiring him yet, if we want to develop our processes and procedures first, let's not have him take his personal time out and come talk to us. So I think if the concern is that we're getting a lot of information this week, we've got information coming next week, then, and we'd like to have more information before deciding on hiring our first outside consultant, then let's hold off on inviting him. Let's see where we're at. Maybe by the next agenda setting meeting. And if we feel comfortable, then inviting him and saying, look, we've got a lot of this stuff. We could really use some help. Then we'll invite him, we'll have him talk. And it's just, we won't do a lot of ECM stuff in between now and then. As long as everyone's okay with that, then I'm fine with that.
Well, and that falls in line with Lee's comment of working smarter, not harder. Let's get the information that we need to create it rather than rushing to create and then having to redo. Right? Or not completely understanding what we wanted, right? So between the training and then the data, the spreadsheet information, and I think getting to work a little bit, we're going to know what we want. I think after that. Again, we don't want to do cart before horse. We're great at cart before horse. We really, really are, but we're getting better. Is there anything else on the ECM?
I don't have anything.
Okay, let's move on. So in a month. Do we know, Mr. Dunn, what grand division this person is coming from? Do we know a name? Do we know a profession? Do we know anything about this person?
I'm not allowed to release the name yet, but by the end of this month, we will have an
So
Eastern.
you know who it is.
We'll have an Eastern representation from the House of Representatives.
Can somebody else ask who it is so they can release the information?
That's part before the horse.
Listen, if they're coming, man. Okay, Eastern. So then we're just
And-
waiting on Western.
And I'm thinking that that person will probably be able to join us up at Northeast.
This must be someone you know personally. Yep, I just, the face just gave it away.
We need to play poker.
I'm actually really good at poker because I make all kinds of faces and you really don't know what it means. Like, that's me. Okay. Okay, so by the Eastern Division will be filled by the end of this month is what you're being told. So they're being appointed, what, 1 July? You have an appointment? Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's the 1st.
I don't know what the date is the document from the speaker is going to say, but by the end of this month, we will have another member.
Okay. Mr. Stahl, can you follow up on that so we can make sure to get them in the email chain? Because, you know, sometimes they forget to tell us stuff when they're appointed. Yeah, when they're onboarded. So we can get all of that started. So they can maybe have a better transition than the rest of us.
I think they'll definitely have a better transition than the rest of us. That's not a high bar.
Yeah, because like, you know, when some of our people joined us, we didn't know they had joined us. Right. So yeah, if you could just follow up on that and see if you can't get like a good date of when we can just group email everybody. Like, welcome to the group. Get to work. Okay, so permanent position discussion. We put this on the agenda. I mean, if we've got somebody coming at the end of the month that we want them to have a voice, we could wait. I'm not, listen, any one of us that is sitting here right now could do chair or vice chair. 100%, 1,000%, any one of us could. I'm just going to throw it out there. While I would love to give this person a voice, I am not waiting for that person so that I could select them as chair, right? Or vice chair, because in my opinion, I would want somebody that has been here, that has experienced some of these things, that understands what we're doing a little bit more, that has been around the block with us a little bit more. And that's just that. So if y'all want to wait, just to give them a voice, we can do that. And for me, it's just for optics because that person doesn't know us from Adam, right? Like, they're voting on somebody they don't know. They're trusting the rest of us. So it would be just simply just for optics and for, I guess, equality on some level to say they got to vote. Do we want to table it for another month? Asking you, Mr. Dunn, since you seem to have the inside information on our schedule.
That would be my recommendation because again, it goes back to equal representation.
Do we wait another month and then wait for the last one? I mean, they're supposed to be shortly behind, but we've been told, right, over and over and over. So do we table, when do we cut it off is what I'm saying. When do we say enough is enough, we're voting? Right?
Well, when we initially went with interim, the idea of interim was until we have a full board for the purpose of equal representation designed by the legislature. Patience.
Well, I'm
play a
not,
part.
listen, it's not that I'm trying to, my intention is not to be impatient. I think it just gives us more strength and more stability when we have permanent positions versus interim positions. You know, when I take meetings or I talk to folks, you know, I don't introduce myself as the chair. I'm the interim chair. And so sometimes you're not taken quite as seriously. And we need to get things done sometimes. So that's my only thought behind that. And the longer that we sit on temporary positions, I think it's not quite as beneficial for pushing forward and getting things done when I need to get things done. So that's my only concern, right? It's just creating that. But if we want to wait, I'm okay, let's wait another month. But at some point, I'm going to bring it up to the board because, you know, enough waiting is enough waiting, right? There's some of us here that 1 August have been waiting a year.
Oh, I
Yeah.
wasn't here.
Well, me too.
Yes.
Me too, sir. Me
Yeah.
too. And I'm sorry the other two aren't here. And I'm sorry that the governor's appointees weren't here. And, you know, like there's some of us that have been waiting to do something for almost an entire full year. Right. And so, and the taxpayers have been paying my salary. And so I just feel like at some point, I want to make things concrete.
I'll communicate with the speaker's office again and see if I have an answer for our formative meeting first weekend.
Who are you talking to in the speaker's office?
Couple of different people,
Okay.
along with the speaker.
Okay. Um,
The roles and responsibilities of the different positions. Is there planning on being a limit, a time limit?
there is, it's in the statute. It's 2 years.
2 years? Okay.
That is something that, you know, which I think we will discuss on, and then bring to you and we can talk about it. The role of the chairman and of the ED, do we want, and that's something maybe we ought to entertain. I know this is getting into a long discussion. How do we want the chairman? Do we want do we want a strong chairman? Do we want Michael to be more? I mean, that's something that we need to discuss, do we not?
We have, Mike and I have, Mr. Stoll and I have discussed that because there are different boards that operate in different ways.
I guess we could bring something and then go, I don't like that, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
If
no, I
that's
mean,
how
if,
you want us to operate.
I mean, traditionally, if we're talking roles of chair and vice chair, traditionally vice chair steps in when chair can't be there, right? Or like periodically you'll see me look at him and I'm asking him specific questions, right? Because, you know, he's the next one in line. But for the most part, traditionally in a setting, whether it's, you know, vice chair, chair, vice chair, commander, vice commander, whatever you want to give them that title, the vice only steps in when the main is not there, cannot be there, right? That's when their powers come into full effect, as if he is chair. If I can't be here for whatever reason, he's chair. He has full, all that stuff. That's my understanding in my many, many years of sitting on a board. Go ahead.
That's one of the roles, but, and I'm not, you'll learn me as we go along, but, depending on what board or, corporation we could be speaking of, vice presidents, vice chairs, they have several different duties that are delegated to them by a chair. And, it takes on different forms from there. So it's whatever our little subcommittee comes up with that we bring to the rest of the board.
I could definitely see something like that, like duties is assigned, duties is delegated, right? Like if, and again, I mean, it is whatever it is, man, like it's fun.
Our subcommittee will figure it out, won't we, Chair?
We will.
Chair of the subcommittee. Skipper, he's guiding the ship, remember?
I thought we moved you over here.
I thought he said he'd do both.
Oh, you're gonna do both, so I'm not on either one. Okay.
So to the point of cart before the horse and waiting for what appears to be coming soon, other members of the board, perhaps before we finalize who will fulfill these roles, we need to first identify those duties and then decide, because I don't know the qualifications of the other people, and I don't know what the role duties will entail. So once everybody's here and we have an understanding, an agreed upon understanding of what these roles, duties will be, then we're fully informed and can make those votes. And it sounds to me like it's not unrealistic to think that all this can't happen in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So I would like to hear the work of your committee before we finalize those.
Can I ask, I know we're waiting to finalize vice chair and chair based on respect for a full board, correct? Is that I kind of feel the same way about the committee. I mean, we're already building, so can we? And I would love to hear every member that's here, even the ED's position on not finalizing or finalizing a vice chair or a chairperson, because just the nature of the beast, as you come along, we're building. So are we gonna go back the next 6, 7 months and rehash and rebuild everything that we have already done to give the speaker sections, other two appointees, a voice in that process as well? And I want to reiterate and repeat myself when I said, in no way am I trying to overstep the speaker's appointees. Their qualifications to me is that they were selected by the speaker. And I trust the speaker, and I believe that's how I look at everybody on this board. That your qualification is that the lieutenant governor, the governor, and the speaker saw it fit to you to serve on this board. So, with that being said, what can we continue to build, and what process are we going to go rebirth so they can have a voice in? And that's my position. I would love for them to have a voice in all of it. And I think we're kind of in a place where, when are they coming? Well, in this case, we got somewhat of an ETA. So do we go back and now, Lee, you're not on that committee, we're putting that person on the committee because they didn't get a voice? So I want to understand that. That's why I really would like you guys to elaborate on is it just these two positions that we want to make sure they have a say so in, or is it the entire board that we've been tasked to sit on?
You don't mind?
Well,
Uh,
Okay,
My
we'll just start, we'll start with you and then we'll just go around, if that's okay with you.
my opinion would be, as far as roles or duties on a board, permanent positions could be decided once the full board is at capacity and everyone's not only has a voice, but everyone's considered for those roles. Because we can't consider two people that aren't here yet. What if they outqualify everyone here for a certain role, whatever it is? And if we make a permanent decision before they are here, we've limited ourselves when they could be doing a better job than me or whoever is in that role. As far as material and our building and our style and our format, they can jump right in and add to what we're doing. We don't have to rehash, because obviously we're going by the statute itself for what we're doing. And they can add to. We don't have to reverse and educate from square one or decide from square one, but just considering roles of doers, uh, I believe we're cheating ourselves by not including those two individuals for their possibilities, what they could bring to benefit all of us.
That's good. I want to ask Mary, Dr. Corporal, you can answer this one. Like you said, Mr. Dunn, w- it's not so much against the statute, just you believe it would be in the best interest of the board that we could be missing out on someone that's really great in one area, really strong in one department, not against statute, because we have statute and quorum to move forward, but it'll be in the best interest of the board just to wait on a full board. Is that what you were saying?
Absolutely. And not only to give them an equal voice, but the fact that they could hold a role better than one of us could. And we could see that once they're here, but we don't know yet.
Thank you, sir.
Well, and I think I already stated, really, my concern is that we haven't yet defined these roles. And that's really what I think we've got time to do both. If timing sounds like timing is, but my real priority is getting the roles defined. And then we all know, and then what we're voting on is very defined.
I don't really feel strongly. I understand the concept of like waiting till everybody gets on board and maybe giving them a say, and maybe they'll have fantastic backgrounds, but I'm a little suspect because we've been hearing, oh, they're almost here for so long. And I know I'm not going to put you in the position to prove it and give us details, but I'm just I'll believe it when I see it at this point. I was gonna say, hold on. I do have to run in like 10 minutes, so if I sneak out, I'll apologize, but I have a pickup to do. Oh, I wanted to ask, do we have anything scheduled before our next, like after tomorrow? I think we probably need like a touch base meeting next week. Don't y'all? I mean, that would be my suggestion. And do we have one scheduled?
We don't have anything on the calendar until after tomorrow, until the next agenda setting meeting. The only other thing that might be in between that is after this, I'm gonna invite everybody over to the Andrew Jackson Building. So if you do want to see the space in the Andrew Jackson Building at any time, reach out to me and I'll meet you downtown and we can go look at it if you can't make it today.
I'd like to schedule something next week. Go over like what we talked about tomorrow.
Yeah, just an after action review type deal. Yeah, we can do that.
Do you have any dates next week? If you need to leave, I'm just asking now. Do you have any dates next week that don't work for you? Okay.
I'm kind of in both camps. Or 3 camps, 4 camps. I mean, I really kind of am. When we originally decided interim, it was like, yeah, it's not a big deal. It's interim. They'll be around. They'll be here soon, right? We can vote again, right? When they get here. I'm with Miss Wiseman. Waiting a really long time. And I'll believe it when I see it. Because we've had them where they've said they're coming, that we've picked them, they've accepted, and then something has happened like the last second and they've not been able to be hired. Right? Like we have done this exact dance. And I'm not saying that your information is bad or whatever, right? We've just been bamboozled and had our hopes up so many times. And then at the like to where, oh, they're going to start next week. And they didn't start. So I'm in that camp. I am in Dr. Carpos's camp as well. Like I would like these roles defined so that we're appropriately appointing somebody to a position. I mean, we wouldn't have hired Michael Stahl if I hadn't written a posting with the qualifications and what we needed, right? But I'm also with Quantel, Mr. Lindsay. Like we've been doing all this other stuff. What's the difference? Right? What's the real difference between picking a chair and a vice chair? These positions are not permanent. They're 2-year terms. These policies and procedures and guidelines and ECM queries and this stuff, that's forever. That's longer, right? Yes, can it be amended? But to go back and amend a whole set of policy is a lot more difficult than to say, hey, man, you're done in 18 months and I'm going to vote somebody else in. Right? Like there's a difference, right? And if it really turns out that Mr. Lindsay's not fit for a chair, there'll be a removal process, right? So again, I'm kind of all over the place. I think I sit in a position where, okay, I'll wait one more time for this next one that's coming. But after that, if we don't have something concrete, and I'm with Dr. Carpos, the 4 to 6 weeks gives time to develop these descriptions, right? So by the time this person is part of the group and able to vote in a public meeting, we should have a job description. I hope, right? It would seem very appropriate to get it done then, because to continue to wait would, come on, at some point I have to draw lines.
To jump here. That's why I thought this is a very important what we're doing here
It is very
because either he runs it or the chair, there's 2 different ways to do this. Either the chair, we can have a strong ED or we can have a strong chair. And that's why I thought 3 of us can talk about it, but like Betsy, I don't know how you feel. Do you think he's in town? He should do most of it. And we're basically voting board members on the materials we're looking at and he's assigning task, or does the chairman assign task? So that's really the nuts and bolts of how we're going to be run.
Yeah.
And that's why we bring it back I don't know if we really thought, because somebody that might want to be chair, I don't want all that responsibility. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
I thought it
yeah.
was just going to be, I get the gavel and.
No,
and-
there's a little bit more to it than that.
Right,
And so, and
right.
Michael and I have talked about like just his
So these
role
are
versus
important.
even his role during a meeting, like how much does he run our meetings versus how much do I run the meeting, right? We've talked about that, and there are different ways that we can do this. I think he and I and Mr. Dunn as well are learning this kind of like as we fit together and we're finding our grooves with each other and how this is going to work. Maybe if we had a little bit more clear guidelines, that would be great. I think right now we're kind of in a hybrid position, right? He does a lot. He
Yeah.
does so much
Yeah.
and he makes a lot of decisions and you're working with people, working on tasks and coming up with things. But then we show up to the meeting and I'm running the meeting. Right. And so there's like this hybrid that we've kind of just mellowed into, and like, yeah, we do need, yeah, sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, I love what you said, interim chairwoman. Everything we're building is somewhat permanent, can be amended, but the vice chair and chair and positions have terms. If you're taking notes, Mrs. Wiseman put in that Lee skipped me and he didn't wait his turn. Right, good. That's fine. He's doing it again. Put that in a minute. I'm sorry. You're good, brother. You're good. Third time again, right there. No, what I was saying, yeah, give me that $100 bill. What I was saying was going back to the representative, give me his name that wrote the letter. Halsey. My response, the reason of bringing up solidifying and moving was in response to his letter and the nature of that letter and wanting to see real results. Again, I will clarify, it was not to not respect anyone's position or any appointees or go over above my pay grade. It was in response to that letter and said, well, guys, let's get to rolling, let's get to working. Because what I said again, I don't think that was the first. It was the first, but I don't think it would be the last. He wanted to see results, and I believe the legislator and the people that put forth this bill, fought for this bill, want to see something. So I was like saying that we're building everything. If he came back and said an update, well, he's permanent vice, she's permanent this, he's subcommittee this, we have this, we have an office building, then he's like, well, my letter had some effect. So again, I just wanted to clarify, it was in no way not giving the speaker the time that's allotted to him, where I don't want to summon him or we don't want to rush him. That's why I was bringing it up, responding to the representative letter, wanting to know that we just wasn't here buying chargers, laptops, and ink for printing machines.
It's a very good point. And to piggyback on that, Ms. Murtaugh, what is I'm the interim chair, right? Like that's how I'm to the General Assembly, right? To our electeds, that's how I'm introducing myself, right? Or, so it's to follow on that. It's not just in that letter. It's, it's in practice too when I'm taking a meeting. And I don't care. I still am just as bossy as I'd be if I was permanent chair, right? Like, I don't like, it's their perception, right? Like, it's their perception. I'm still going to do the same thing that I'm already doing. I'm still going to take the same meetings. I'm still going to talk to the same people, right? Like, I'm not afraid just because I'm interim that I can't walk in a room and get done what we need to get done. That's that by no means, but it is the perception from the outside, as he said with Representative Halsey. Sorry. Jerry, it's your turn.
Asking on that, where are we with that? Because there was a mention in the phone call that there was going to be a meeting with him.
Yeah. I can update now, or we can finish, get
Yeah,
around. the
finish
room.
and then come back to it.
And then the other thing is I can talk about that now in the open meeting, or I have a list of things I was going to talk to everybody about just afterwards. So I'm happy to, I do have an update on that, but I was just going to wait till sort of, we just got through the agenda.
And to finish that point, I don't even know if Mr. Halsey knows we're not full staffed yet or not. He probably does not. But does he know? I don't know.
you have to answer for that. We have to answer with, what's going on? What have we done? What is the progress? What boxes have been checked? And when I've been in meetings with Mr. Stahl, he's amazing at it. He's great at like, dancing around, tap dancing, basically, like we've done this and we've done this and we've done this and we've done this. And I'm listening to him and I know, God, there's so much we haven't done or finalized or whatever, but we do a pretty good job of, oh yes, this we've done, accomplished this and we've accomplished that. Right. So the questions are asked. We haven't taken a meeting with Representative Halsey, but I'm sure when we do, which will eventually happen, he's going to ask those same questions. Right. And we're going to have to start throwing stuff in the air, right? Like, yes, we've done this, we've formed this and now today we formed 3 subcommittees. Dun, 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 right? Like we can now say we did that, right? So, and at the next meeting, we finalized our, job description. Every conversation we have, we get to add to it. But it'd be nice when I walk in a room or whoever walks in a room, they're the chair, right? It's the perception. That's all. Next.
I feel like the most important task we've got right now is to get our review policies and our policies put together. So if we can do that, and I think we should be up and functional by July. And when we're up and functional, then whether we've got the other 2 members on board or not, once we're up and functional, we probably need to look at saying, we're going to have a chairman and a vice chairman permanently for the 2-year program. But I think also we can have our policy as far as what the personnel are going to do ready by the next meeting too. So I think we're doing good with an interim. Let's get our stuff done and try to get up and rolling next month. I want to see us going July 1.
I just put, I think if Randy called me or I talked to John Reagan the other night, we've got the Thomas training. That's, I think, the most important thing. They want to know that we're looking at cases and what we're supposed to be doing. If we can wait, I think probably I'm like you, a month plus, as well as what Mary said, why we even talked about this, the definitive roles between the ED and the chairman. That's really an important thing. How's it going to be run? It's going to be, he runs it. It's going to be the chairman runs it. And this is for in the future too, not just you or whoever else is here. It's going to be 12 years from now. Is it going to be the ED is kind of the quarterback, or is the chairman the quarterback? It's kind of that simple. So I think that, as Mary said, more I thought about it, it's really important to have that defined and us voting on that's what we want it to be moving forward. Before we go, this is, we're voting for this person, and then we go, well, here's your responsibilities, and well, I don't
want that.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. No, and
I think it's only fair.
And listen, oh, go ahead.
Think about that. That's fair.
Sorry to cut you off, Mr. Frank. That right there is where I do raise a problem, because we are defining a role without the other 2 members' voice, but we won't commit to something that's term-wise, something that expires because they're not here. But they should have a say-so in the duties of that seat. Like, I don't know if I'm the only one, not saying you contradict yourself, but see the contradiction. We're going to permanently make policy that you have no say-so in, but we'll wait for you to get here to vote on something that expires. I would just feel like if I was coming in as Speaker Section appointee, I would want to be, I'm going to use what Brother Lee said when we first started. I would want to be speaking on the Constitution. I would want to be speaking on something that's going to be written in stone instead of something that's being tweeted. I said that last part. Don't credit Lee. Just saying. Seriously, but that's where you are weak.
Chairman is not as.
Oh, your microphone, the microphone.
I'm saying the chairman is. Vanessa's doing a fine job with just the interim. if we're going, okay, we're gonna wait till we get 8 to move, then we'd have the legislature up our rear ends.
I think we take everybody, I think
We've
we
got to
all, we
move
take
on.
the whole group and we just moosh it together, right? We gonna wait for the next one. We're gonna wait for that East Tennessee person. I'm not even gonna speculate if it's a guy or a girl, just that person. We're gonna write some job descriptions, right? I really like, you just made it so simple. You should have gone, we should have led with you, because how are we going to ask somebody to hold a position and they don't even know what they're supposed to
That
do?
was good.
That, like, that it is, we're done. We're done. How are we going to ask somebody to take a position and they don't even know what their job is? So I think get that defined, get our guidelines defined, as Mr. Bassbinder said, let's, that's the whole kit and caboodle. Our guidelines and our job description, that's what chair and vice chair are going to have to steer the ship, right? That's how we have to keep the ship upright. To your point, and Betsy's point, at some point, we got to draw a line in the sand. So let's table this. Let's get our stuff in order, right? Our guidelines, our people, our job descriptions, and let's get this East Tennessee person on board. And then we'll revisit it. We will revisit it because, depending on what your sources, I mean, if we're going to get another one in a week, right? But if we don't have another, if we're waiting again in limbo for number 9 to finally show up, at some point we have to move forward if we have our guidelines and our job description, right? So we'll take a bit of, if that's okay with the group, let's table it and get the next number 8. Let's get number 8 in. Let's get the job description written and let's get our guidelines written. And then we'll revisit it at that point. Is that fair to everybody? Is everybody okay with that? Dr. Carpos, Jerry, Lee, everybody, Betsy? Peter, right? It's Peter. Are you okay with that, Peter? You good? Yeah.
Eating a Starburst.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was an excellent.
Yeah, you did a real, yes, I think, yes, you like that. Where have you been all meeting, Mr. Lindsay? Golly.
I was waiting my turn, Mr. Frank.
No, I just, you don't say that much a lot of the time, but what you do is just always gets
It's
right
very
to the heart of the
important.
matter.
Yeah,
It's very incisive.
we do appreciate you very much. And on that note,
Insightful.
does anybody have anything else? Anything they would love to say? Somebody tell me something good before we close. Morton's. All right. Well, that sounds great. And on that note, at whatever 2:24-ish, this meeting is adjourned. Please cease recording, Mr. Stahl. And I want to thank everybody